Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking, and I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited. And I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. I was going to do a full call today. I'm going to try. There is a lot going on. We're getting absolutely swamped over here. I'm getting calls from people that I've been dealing with for over a decade with regard to information, people in Washington, people in the Middle East, people in Europe, certain influential clients that we have, and there's just a lot going on. So I'm just going to, there's no way I can get into all of it, and a lot of it is still ongoing, so I'm just going to ramble a little bit today, run through some of the information that I have. We're still waiting for a final result in some of the elections in this country, which are going to have a very dramatic effect on the next 2 years of our lives, and which could have at least an indirect effect on what we're involved in and what we're most interested in, which is the reinstatement of some of these currencies. But let's go ahead and get started for today. Today is November 16th. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information we believe to be most relevant. And, of course, the window for the potential reinstitution of the dinar is uppermost in our minds. Despite all of the confusion and what's going on, the reinstitution of the dinar could literally happen at any time, and I'll get into my rationale for that. Having just said that, I have to relate to you the fact that the Prime Minister Sudani and certain members of the CBI have issued statements saying that there will be no change in the exchange rate. However, you have to understand that to publicly announce a date and a rate for an exchange rate would be a technical violation of certain insider trading laws. I know from my experience in Kuwait in the early 90s that just days before they reinstituted, public statements were being made that there would be no reinstitution of their currency for up to a year. And 72 hours later, they reinstituted their currency. Also, what has disheartened some of our clients is that the Iraqi dinar has now gone back to 1450. That disheartens people because they say, hey, Jim, look, the rate's going the wrong direction. Well, remember, they're trying to, we use the word delete the zeros. In country, I like to use the term collect the zeros. So by further devaluing the 3-0 provisional currency, they're able to collect those currencies and get them off the street, because they don't want those currencies on the street. The Iraqi citizen will never have the 3 zeros recognized, but what individuals can do is try to smuggle the 3-0 currency out of the country where the 3 zeros will be recognized. So in my view, going back to 1450, it's actually a positive thing. Now, the government of Iraq, through Prime Minister Kazemi at the time, had negotiated mutual trade and banking deals with a number of countries in the Middle East and Eastern Europe. So I would simply argue that those deals and agreements make absolutely no sense if the Iraqi dinar is to remain in a program rate. So we have to look at what they're doing, not what some of them are saying. The CBI has also stepped up the citizen education program, which was a precursor for the release of the new lower denoms. So I can only conclude from the step up in the education program that the CBI is anticipating the release of these new lower denominations. That's good as well. Lastly, a gentleman by the name of Mazhar Salih is the official government financial advisor. He released a statement in which he's in support of the reinstatement of the dinar in a glide path. This dovetails with what I was suggesting over the last couple of weeks, that we go from 1450 back to 1190, From 11.90, we may go as high as 1-to-1 with the U.S. dollar, but perhaps initially a discount somewhere around 85 cents against the U.S. dollar, then moving to a slight premium over the U.S. dollar, which would make the dinar the functional premier currency in country, and then float globally with the revaluation, looking to a rate certainly to go quickly above $3 and approaching as high as $5. My expectation also is that we might see a new rate, perhaps as high as 1-to-1 in the budget. The budget's not been passed yet, although the budget's supposed to be presented very shortly. Now, ordinarily in the budget, you're going to see expectations or projections for revenue and for expenditures, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see some of the white paper reforms and even a new exchange rate in the budget. Now, some people say that if the program rate is in the budget, that means that the dinar will not revalue over calendar year 2023. That's not true. The rate's been changing from time to time. They still operate under a budget, so whether the exchange happens just prior to the budget or just after the budget or somewhere down the road, we've seen that has occurred when the dinar is going in the wrong direction. Now, obviously, it'd be better to see the exchange rate, the new exchange rate in the budget, but the fact that it's not in the budget does not mean that they're not going to be making the change. Now, it's much more complicated if they have to do it in sort of a backward way, but, you know, that's kind of typical of what's been going on in Iraq. And given the confusion in our own country, we can certainly see how Iraq in their situation might not be doing everything as we would expect them to do it. So I still lean on the gradual rate, which is going from $14.50 to $11.90. Now, that would technically complicate the budget, but it still could be done. The issue for me is that the economic growth in Iraq must, by necessity, include all of the banking and trade agreements that it's implemented with all of these countries, and there's simply not enough reserve currency. Despite the fact that Iraq has the largest reserve currency it's ever held, there's simply not enough reserve currency to fund the operations of the government for 2023 and all of these other agreements. So the Iraqi dinar is going to have to start moving to 1-to-1 with the dollar very quickly. It would be a little bit more complicated for us in terms of our exchange procedure if they have the glide path. But again, if that happens, then we're just going to have to figure out a strategy to have an orderly exchange of currency, because there are tax implications that would be involved, and we're going to need to consider those, because none of us, of course, want to be exposed to a 100% penalty for failing to transact the exchange. According to Section 988E2 of the Internal Revenue Code, the taxable event is the change in the rate, not the date of the exchange. So we may have to do some calculations based on what happens, and of course we at Trust Unlimited will, if necessary, be providing that information by email if you're on our email list, rather than having to wait for a Wednesday call to provide information that came out earlier in the week. But again, my expectation is that we will be seeing a rate shortly, whether it's a discount from the U.S. dollar up to 1-to-1. I don't expect to see a $3 rate in the budget, but I would not be surprised if we were to see a dollar, 1-to-1 with a dollar in the budget. And then at that point, the IMF could just allow the currency to go global, put it on the Forex, and if it comes out at a dollar, I wouldn't be surprised if 10 days later we're well above $3. So we'll just have to keep an eye on all of that. The other issue is, as we get closer to the end of the year, it gets a little more complicated in terms of when to exchange, what the tax implications are. Taxes on the profit from the exchange would be due on January 15th of next year. So We certainly don't want to see a revaluation late in December because it makes it extremely difficult to negotiate the exchange and determine from the IRS exactly what the tax implications are. But once again, if that's the case, then we're just going to have to move quickly, try to get the information we need so that all of our clients are aware of what the tax exposure would be both in and out of a trust, and that you have sufficient liquidity from the exchange to pay whatever the tax might be. But when we get into this subject, now we're getting into the program that Trusts Unlimited has put in place to assist you. I'm going to do a little brief description of the program we've put in place. But about a decade ago, Trusts Unlimited decided to help Dinarians. We, of course, were of the belief that those that were holding dinar were going to be the recipients of a substantial amount of wealth literally overnight. And so we put a turnkey program to assist them. It employs a lot of sophisticated strategies used by the wealthy to protect both your privacy and your wealth. Of course, the centerpiece of this is the establishment of your family asset protection trust package. And I do want to touch on that package. Over the last decade, we've discussed this package strictly from the perspective of an individual that had dinar and other currencies. But the politics in this country over the last couple of years have made it necessary for all Americans to seriously consider exercising their Fourth Amendment right to establish these trusts, to contract, to protect their privacy and protect their wealth from litigation, from excessive taxation, and some of the other investment issues that we're going to need to be dealing with. So I just want to touch on the benefits that the Family Asset Protection Trust package can provide. First benefit is privacy. Whether you're a person of substantial means or whether you expect to be because you hold currencies or some other asset that you think is going to appreciate, you have to understand statistically that individuals with net worths in the millions, 1 in 4 can expect to be sued over their lifetime. In addition, approximately 40% of those lawsuits are frivolous lawsuits. In other words, they're nuisance suits where individuals are basically saying, just give me some money and I'll go away. Well, when you put assets in trust, the general public has no knowledge of what's in that trust because it's sealed. Therefore, it's difficult for an individual who's trying to make some money to file a frivolous lawsuit because they don't know what's in that trust, whether you're worth anything at all. So the creation of a trust makes it extremely difficult for anyone to even consider the possibility of suing you. In addition, where the frivolous lawsuit's concerned, litigation lawyers will generally work on a contingency basis, meaning they'll get a percentage of the award. But since the lawyer that would be representing the person suing you has no idea what's in the trust, he's probably going to work with an upfront retainer. Well, in a frivolous lawsuit, an individual is not going to pay an upfront retainer because he's trying to make a quick buck. He doesn't have money to spend on attorneys for a case he may never win. So the privacy issue is important, whether you're Dinarian or not. The second issue is IRS scrutiny. If you got these currencies in trust, the IRS wouldn't be auditing you, they'd be auditing the trust. And since the only taxable event within the trust after the revaluation would be the exchange itself, the IRS won't be able to do a 6-year audit. So you're in good shape if the currencies are owned by a trust. Once again, if you are a person of means or you're simply someone that's upset with what's going on with the federal government right now and their intrusion into our lives, there are 87,000 new IRS agents. By creating a family asset protection trust and placing your assets in it, the IRS is probably going to move on because they are, in essence, trying to find the lay-down cases, the low-hanging fruit. They don't want to get involved with sophisticated trust. They're going to rightly assume that you have competent legal representation, and so they'd rather deal with individuals that don't have sophisticated trust products. Their situation's an open book, and in the time that would take for them to audit you, they can audit a half a dozen other people. Then there's the gifting aspect. One of the sub-trusts within our family is a gifting sub-trust. This is important because With this gifting subtrust, not only will you be able to gift currencies to family and friends pre-RV in order to avoid a federal gift tax, but you'll be able to control the post-RV proceeds. And in certain situations, you don't want to give these individuals a substantial amount of wealth for any number of reasons. But even if you're not a denarian, if you're a person of means, you can use the trust in order to gift individuals life estates. So you can, for example, gift someone a home that they can live in, but the home reverts to the trust when they pass away, stays in your estate so that you can gift it to other individuals or do whatever you want with it. Then there's the issue of probate and the federal estate tax. Probate is a situation where your estate has to go through a process that can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months ordinarily. But there have been some probate cases that have gone on for years and even decades. We don't want this to happen for our clients. Then there's something called the federal estate tax, the tax that the federal government would assess in order for that estate to be transferred to heirs. The federal estate tax can be as high as 65% of your estate. However, if your assets and your net worth are housed in one of our family asset protection trust packages, not only will there be no probate or public disclosure of your estate, but there will be no federal estate tax, saving your heirs as much as 65% of their inheritance. Lastly, this trust can protect you from future bad acts after you've acquired this wealth, or if you happen to be a person of means. That's because we create the package in order to utilize a strategy called segregation of assets. We isolate each of your assets in a separate subtrust. So if any one of those assets were ever to get involved in civil litigation, that would be the only asset that would be involved. The other assets are safe and secure in the other subtrusts because under the law, those separate subtrusts are separate legal entities or persons having nothing to do with whatever the litigation involved is. So the trust package works very much the way a commercial barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The other assets are safely protected in the other compartments due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. So this trust package works very well for individuals that are holders of these currencies. By transferring the currencies to the trust before they appreciate, this trust product works very well and has worked very well for our clients in the past who have a substantial amount of wealth. But we have a new component here. This trust product, in our opinion, is an indispensable asset given what's going on with the federal government right now. Now, the problem we face right now today, whether you're a denarian or not, is that it looks like the Democrats have retained the Senate but have lost control of the House. Down the road, that's going to be helpful over the next couple of years, but we still have a lame duck session that will be in session until January 3rd of next year. Here's the problem with the Senate. I see two problems. Number one, I expect the Senate is going to dissolve the filibuster rule, meaning that the Senate will operate like the House. It's simply a majority vote, so the minority will have absolutely no rights. Now, there's a reason the Senate was set up the way it was. It was to protect minority rights. But they will be gone if the filibuster rule is dissolved. The second issue I'm concerned with is the implementation of the central bank digital currency. I've discussed this in the past. I've discussed the dangers of it. And the establishment of this trust can help to mitigate against the control that the federal government is going to attempt to create with a digital currency. With a digital currency and the elimination of hard currency, the government basically is taking complete and total control of everything. But there are ways to get around that. That's to move out of the central bank system within your trust. Now, here are some of the ways that we can do that. One is the purchase of precious metals. Now, precious metals is an excellent way to mitigate against inflation. We know that the government, especially a government run by the Democrats, is going to continue to print money. That's going to deflate the dollar. That's what inflation is. It's not the increase in the value of assets. They're intrinsic. It's the reduction in the value of the purchasing price of the dollar. The way you get around that is precious metals. Now, back in 1932, FDR issued an Executive Order 6103, which said there can be no more hoarding of gold. That could happen again. However, there are even ways to get around that. One way to get around that is to purchase shares in gold and silver mining companies, or there's mutual funds that they create a portfolio of gold and silver mining companies. They track the value of gold, so that's one way that you can deal with it. Another issue is the purchase of cryptos. Now, of course, the federal government's been very negative on cryptos. They say that there are nefarious players with regard to cryptos. And then, of course, what do we learn right after the election? We learned that much of the money that went to the Ukraine was siphoned to a crypto company, FTX. FTX subsequently donated $40 million to the Democratic Party for the midterm elections. And some of the malfeasance within FTX has resulted in investors, over 1 million investors, losing over $2 billion. So, once again, it was a matter of projection. The federal government was accusing these individuals of doing exactly what they were doing, that is, laundering money through a crypto. However, once again, cryptos is a way to operate outside of the Federal Reserve System. Then there are something called REITs, Real Estate Investment Trusts. These invest in a series of real estate purchases, and they create a portfolio of real estate ownership as opposed to, say, stocks and bonds. Now, one example of a REIT would be there are REITs for storage units. One REIT, for example, invests in a series of storage units. The storage units have to have an average of 90% occupancy, paying a 7% dividend. So here's a way that you can put your money into something that pays a nice dividend. Now, it's true that the interest paid would have to go into the bank, and it would be exposed to the central bank digital currency. However, the principal will not be in the system, and that's what you want to do. It's going to be nearly impossible to avoid the digital currency in terms of dividends and interest, but it is possible to keep the lion's share, 90% or more, of your wealth outside of the Federal Reserve System and out of the digital currency. Of course, then there's investment in real estate directly, and you theoretically, if you're exotic enough, you have enough wealth, and things really go south, you can move out of the SWIFT system altogether and go into some of the other, for example, the BRICS nations have other reserve currency arrangements, so you can use other currencies as well. So there's a number of things we can do after the revaluation, after you've acquired this wealth, and there's a number of things we can do for those of you that may not hold currencies but simply want the privacy and asset protection that this trust package can present, and at the same time operate outside of the Federal Reserve System if they do go to a digital currency. So this is the information that I did want to provide for today. I think I'm going to see if we can get into a little bit of a Q&A, but before we do, and for the benefit of our newer callers, if the things I've discussed here today are of interest, I strongly suggest you contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. It does contain everything you need if you wish to consider establishing your family asset protection trust, but again, you're under no obligation to do so. You can review the package. There's a lot of information about us, about trusts, about the revaluation of these currencies, and other protections as well. You can contact us by phone or email if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you, and there will be no consultation fee. Now you can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. You can contact us by email, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. That's that is trusts with an S at Gmail. Trusts with an S LLC at gmail.com. I'm sorry I'm getting confused here, but my phone keeps ringing, and it's really distracting me. Or you can go to our phone service, which is 307-274-4122. We'll be happy to send you our initial package. We'll be happy to answer any initial questions you may have. After reviewing the package, if you want to contact us for any questions, we'll be happy to assist you. Everything you need is included in the package if you wish to proceed. If you do apply for a trust, we've put on some extra paralegals. We've been getting trusts out within 3 working days. We know that time may be short, and so we're moving as quickly as we can to get these packages out to you. Now, I am going to see if we can get into a Q&A here. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and open the Q&A, and again, I'm going to give you our contact information once again. You can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Our email is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc at gmail.com. And our phone service is 307-274-4122. We do have one question here. This is area code 801. That's 801. Go ahead.
Jim, it's Clay Blackwell. How are you this morning?
Yes, sir. How you doing, Clay?
I'm doing just fine. Listen, I appreciate you opening this up to a Q&A. I had a couple of questions. One, I know you were deeply involved with that Kuwait revaluation and the way things went down. I'm wondering if you think that the Iraqis could pull a quick one on us and require us to come to that country to exchange our currency.
No, that's not going to happen.
Okay. So what was the difference between that and Kuwait?
Well, you know, the Kuwaiti deal was a much smaller deal, and it was sort of the first time they really had a situation like that. Iraq is, for a lot of countries, won't even go into Iraq, and Iraq has expended. I mean, they've collected a lot of money by making their dinar available to speculators, and that's what we are, speculators. So it's just not going to fly. Then remember, the leverage here is much greater than it was with the Kuwaiti dinar. If you will remember, what we had to do with the Kuwaiti dinar is we had a group, and we hired someone to go to Kuwait, and we had to pay all their expenses plus 15% of the profit. So they had a really nice payday. That's going to be unrealistic here. There's a lot more currency involved. Then we get into the FinCEN documents. Oops, is that me or is that you?
No, that's me, Jim. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. The other thing is it's after the Kuwaiti thing that we had Executive Order 13303 allowing, of course, the individual private citizens a little bit more leeway. So it's too complicated to go to Iraq. It's just not going to happen.
Do you know how many Kuwait dinars were in circulation out of country prior to their reinstatement?
I did it back then. I have no recollection now. I can tell you that we purchased at about 15 cents and we exchanged them at around $3.46, and that was just in a matter of months. So as much of a payday as that was, that's nothing compared to the leverage we're talking about with the dinar. I guess they could pull it. I guess anything's possible, but I don't see that happening. I just don't see it.
Well, the dinar is less than a penny, so it's absolutely worthless. And there's probably a lot of people holding some dinar, but there's a lot of dinars that hold a significant amount of dinar. I know I'm one of those. But the one thing I wanted to say Go ahead.
Well, real quick, let me just add one more thing. Remember, this time around, a lot of central banks and a lot of hedge funds are dinar holders, and they're not going to have to go to Iraq to exchange. It's not going to happen. They want their banks to profit from this. They don't want all the leverage in Iraq. So I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, I would think, too, here in the United States, when we exchange that money, because of the Basel III compliance, the United States is going to do nothing more than stash that money since it has such a significant value after the revaluation. So this take on the fact that there's not enough money to do that exchange, I don't think that's going to fly. The other thing I wanted to say is, it appears to me that this thing is setting up kind of like it did back in 2020 when they devalued that currency. They didn't let the parliament know what was going on until they sent the budget to Parliament for the 2021 budget year, because they didn't do a budget in 2022. They did the 2021 budget based on that 1450 valuation, and we've already covered that ground, where they were trying to delete the zeros, getting those larger denominations off the street. Well, it's taken 2 years for them to do that, and it appears to me that that's what's setting up for the 2023 budget. As you're fully aware, there's two budgets. There's the operating budget, and then there's the investment budget. That investment budget has the reforms in there. You're also aware that Sater has given them 6 months to get this done, and he's going back to the streets. So I don't see Soudani wasting any time trying to get the reforms up and running. But like you said, they can't do it with a program rate. They've got to revalue their currency, because some of those reforms will require international participation. So I disagree with what you said about it going to a 1-to-1 and then a float. I don't see how they can float that currency knowing that they need to know exactly how much money they're going to need for those reforms that are coming through on the 2023 budget. So I think it's going to be a reinstatement, quite frankly.
Well, I hope it is, but the reason I brought that up is because their advisor is the one that said he thought the best option would be the float. And, of course, as I said, that would be complicated. Back to what you were saying about 2022. Remember, 2022, they were operating primarily with their caretaker government, and they had the emergency food security law that was kind of a stopgap since they were operating without a budget. So all this means is that they may have rules in how they're supposed to do things, but they always find a way to somehow get it done outside of the box. But I agree with you. They can't proceed without in a program rate. I mean, unless they just decide we're not going to. These deals are not going to come to fruition. The banking deals, all these other international deals, they're not going to come to fruition if they stay in a program rate. Their argument, well, gee, but look, we have all this reserve currency. It's still not enough to run the government, their operating expenses, and fulfill the international contracts. So the only logical solution is to come out of the program rate. And that's what the IMF, the UN, and everyone else, Bank of International Settlements, World Trade Organization, they're all banging the table saying, what's going on? Get it done.
Well, they do have the petrodollar, which is based on their oil, but it's a dollar, not a dinar. Could they substitute that in order to start initiating the reforms? Or do they absolutely 100% have to have that international dinar in order to implement those reforms?
The petrodollar is in decline. Now Saudis are accepting other currencies other than the U.S. dollar. Russia, you have to purchase in rubles. So you have to convert to a ruble before you can buy Russian oil. So India's buying from Russia. China's buying from Russia. Some of the other Middle East countries are just buying from Saudi Arabia. Europe, the United States was in a position to sell oil to Western Europe, but Biden screwed that up. So we're out of the picture. We're witnessing the decline of the petrodollar. It's the U.S. dollar. I mean, it's strong right now, but it's not going in the right direction.
Well, I would think that there's no way for Iraq to come out of where they're at unless they reinstate their money. Now, to say that they go to a 1-to-1 and immediately float that currency, I agree with you that I think the value of that dinar will go up significantly, not in years, but in a matter of months. But the problem, again, is how can they do that if they know they have a budget? And this is the other thing. They haven't sent that budget to Parliament because if the rate is changed, and it's in that budget, because you got to know that the GOI, or the Council of Ministers, and the central bank, they're working together to determine, okay, when are we going to send this to Parliament? Because once they send it to Parliament, if the new rate is in there, it's going to be pretty easy to figure out what it is. So I think they're going to change that rate prior to them doing it. That's what they did in 2020. That's exactly what they did.
Yeah, but they also do nonsensical. They say things that are infuriating. As an example, and our government does it too. They come out and make a statement. We're not going to change the rate probably for years. But what's going on is they already have the internal rate. They already have changed it. They just didn't tell us they changed it. So when they say we're not going to change it, they mean they're not going to change it from what they've already done behind the scenes. It's already whatever it's going to be. It's not 1190. So they just play games with words. It's so, you know. Like
I agree with that. I agree with that, Jim. But keep in mind too, like you said earlier, if they come out and tell everybody, guess what? This is what we're going to do, and this is what we're going to do it. There's going to be a run on the dinar, and again, that's violating insider trading laws. So they can't really come out and say we're going to change our rate. They can hit around it, but the CBI is the only one that can say exactly what they're going to do. And the CBI hasn't said anything. We've got the council, not the council of ministers. We've got the finance minister. We've got the parliament members all talking about changing the rate, But none of those guys have any control over what happens with the CBI.
Right. And the other issue is why I make a distinction between deleting the zeros and collecting the zeros. Deleting the zeros simply means that an Iraqi national, when he walks into a bank with a provisional 3-0 currency, those 3 zeros aren't going to be recognized. But the reason they need to collect the provisional 3 zeros is because individuals who are in possession of it, primarily the corrupt government officials, are going to smuggle it out of the country in order to take advantage of the 3 zeros. So that's why they need to collect them. They literally get them off the street. And that's hopefully what they're trying to do by going back to 1450. People are seeing that, they're letting the air out of the tires, so just get rid of them now, get what you can get for them because they're going in the other direction. But that's merely a device to physically collect them as much as they can.
I agree with that. I mean, with the price of inflation there, they have to take that money out of their mattresses and start using it to buy bread and milk. So I understand what you're talking about there. I also think that the way they're talking about the budget, they're talking about the rate, this, that, and the other. They're putting this thing together so that by the first of the year, they can reinstate that currency, send it back to Parliament to approve the budget, and we're done.
I think the backstop is January. I really do. As a matter of fact, when we get into this, we get to December 10th, I did the math on this. We don't want a revaluation after December 10th because it doesn't give us time. It doesn't give Trust Unlimited time to compel the IRS to tell us what the taxable implications are before the tax date of January 15th. So, we need 30 days. I say December 10th because of the holidays. I say we need 30 days because we can go to the IRS and say, look, you're not going to tag any of our clients with a penalty. We've come to you. We've asked you what the tax is. If you drag your feet, you can't come back on us post facto after January 15th and say, oh, you didn't pay the right tax. You should have paid this, or we're going to tag you with a penalty. We have to put them on notice. You're not going to get away with that. We've asked you for the information. If you don't provide it, that's on you.
Well, I can agree with that, but I'll be totally frank with you, Jeff. I really don't care. I've been waiting 17 years, almost 18 years for this thing to happen. December 10th, December 30th, whenever they bring it on, I'm ready. If I have to pay the taxes, I'll pay the taxes. But the point is, after 17 years, the date doesn't matter to me. I just need it to happen.
And I agree. My only point about the date is after December 10th, we won't have enough time to compel the IRS. We won't be able to make an argument that you didn't give us enough time to determine the tax. So if it's a cap gain outside of a trust and it's tax deferred in the trust, we won't have that confirmation from the IRS, meaning we'd have to pay the ordinary income tax and file for a refund, citing sections 988E2 and section 643B. I don't want to have to do that, but after December 10th, we may be forced to do that. That's my point.
Well, I agree with that. I mean, we want the best case scenario. I understand that. But as you are well aware, we're actually Iraq is in a budget period right now with the food and security law. That apparently was set up to scandalize acquiring dinar illegally, and apparently there's corrupt politicians that were behind that. And I think that's why the Sudani is canceling that budget as of December 6th. Now, why December 6th is a golden date, I don't know. I don't know what his reasoning is for that. I think it's a stall tactic so that they can wait until near the end of the year before they revalue the currency. That may not happen, but I really feel that's what's going to happen.
Well, there's a lot of players involved. I mean, when Maliki comes out and says he wants to see the reinstatement, yeah, I want to see a reinstatement too, but I get nervous when people like him are on my side, if you know what I mean.
Well, Maliki's already stolen billions of dinar, and he stays Maliki stays close to the bone because he knows if he goes out, they're going to screw him to the wall. I mean, the man has violated so many rules and laws. That's why he stays so close. He's got money probably in every tax shelter in the world.
Well, he still must have some juice because they want to make him a VP, which gives him immunity. So, I'm kind of like you. My bottom line is I just want to go to the bank, conduct my exchange, and move on down the road. I'm done with all of this. I'm really ready for this to be over. At this point, I don't even care. If they say, Jim, I'll give you $2 for your dinar. Okay. All right. I'm just ready to move on, and a lot of people are.
I'd probably do part of it at that point. But the bottom line
it's the tax issue. You got to make sure you have sufficient liquidity to pay the tax on the. If the tax is based on the increase, then all of it's taxable, not just what you exchange. So it's complicated. And it's I can tell you this because I don't have to give you names. We have one client, and we have some pretty well-known people. We have one client that has 500 million dinar and 500 million dong, and we have other clients that literally want to sell us some of their currencies because their home's going to get foreclosed on. So we have extremely wealthy people and people living on the edge. So, the way we're looking at it is we just want this thing done. We want to get money in people's hands. We don't want them to have 100% penalty on a tax. We don't want any of this stuff to happen, but we're getting toward the end of the year. We're getting toward the end of a quarter, and things going to get complicated if it all pops at the end. If it does, we'll do what we have to do. But like I said, we have people that are in completely different situations, and so we got a lot of ground to cover.
The other thing is, Jim, I don't know how long you've been in. It seems like maybe the same time I have, but what does your gut tell you? I mean, do you really think we're close with this thing? I mean, I put my dinar away for about 10 years and completely forgot all about it. And just over the last couple of years, I've been more involved with it, more aware of what's going on. And it seems to me, just my gut feeling, that we are almost there.
Every major box that needed to be checked in order to go to the reinstatement has been checked. All of the international agencies have publicly stated they want Iraq to proceed. There's nothing else that needs to be done except the fact that we're still dealing with a culture that's sectarian, a culture that's tribal, a culture that has an extremely complicated form of a parliamentary system with like over 100 different parties. So it's just unfortunate. There's just so many cooks in the kitchen. It's and they're all vying for control. But as far as I'm concerned, it should be done at this point. It should be done.
Right. I agree. Well, let's hope it is. Thanks for your time, Jim.
Sure. Take care. Bye-bye now. Okay, our next caller is area code 347.
Yes.
347. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Praveen from New York. Any thoughts on Trump announcing his presidential campaign yesterday?
Well, I think Trump decided to announce because I think he thought that a lot of other people were going to announce, and Trump being Trump, he just wanted to be the lead dog. It's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next, year with the Republicans in terms of who else announces and what happens. But from the perspective of, where we are with our clients and Trust Unlimited, I'm really concerned about what this lame duck session is going to do between now and January 3rd. I'm not talking about the dinar. I'm talking just about domestically what's going to happen to us. I'm a little concerned. Like I said, my two issues are, even if they remove the filibuster from the Senate, I don't think the Democrats can hold the Senate in 2 years, so that rule can be rescinded and we can go back to the filibuster. But if they go to that digital currency, the central bank digital currency, I don't think things will ever be the same for us, and that really concerns me.
No, but do you give Trump any chance of winning? And if he does, what is,
Well,
if he does,
I'll tell you this. I like the speech Trump has been right in terms of policy and in terms of his arguments. My problem with Trump is all of the drama. He loses to people in the middle with the drama. The speech he gave was very measured. He stayed on point. He talked about the issues. So if he stays away from the drama, absolutely, he could be the favorite for the Republican Party. And I mean, if Biden is just, it's just I can't even tell you what I think about the guy, But I hope we can survive 2 more years of these people because. I think their objective is, they say they want to fundamentally transform the country. They mean that. When people say things like that, they mean that, and that's not good. It's good for them. It's not good for us. When they say, I want to save our democracy, we're not a democracy. We're a constitutional representative republic. So, we'll just have to see. But like I say, if Trump will just say...
I think Trump has to explain what happened. Well, what was he doing during the January 6th Capitol Hill riots?
What was he doing?
Yeah, what was he doing? Why was he doing in the White House? That's the thing here. Was he watching? Was he doing? He has to explain that.
I think we're going to find out a lot more if the Republicans. They keep saying the Republicans have won the House, but I'm looking at the news and it keeps having that number 217 there. It doesn't have 218 up. They haven't said they've got 218 seats is what they need. The Republicans get the House and the Republicans have their investigations. I think we're going to learn a lot that has been left out of the equation. So we'll have to see. See. I was just going to say I have a lot of friends in D.C. and they said that their basic position is they don't know if the American people can handle the truth. But we'll see. We'll see.
Okay, one more thing. Okay, did you watch the Pence interview on Monday?
The what?
The Mike Pence interview, the former vice president of Trump. Did you watch the interview on Monday?
I heard some of what he said. He basically said he was proud of what he and Trump had accomplished, but that he and Trump they've got a parting of the ways right now, which is kind of what I expected.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly. Bye-bye now. Okay, that was our last caller for this afternoon. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. I think on balance, the news is good in terms of the potential for the reinstitution of the dinar. I've explained to you my concerns about what's going on in our country domestically, but those concerns can be addressed and mitigated against simply by the creation of your family asset protection trust, whether you're a dinarian or not. Again, I'll give you our contact information. You can go to our website, which is Trust with an S, UnlimitedLLC.com. If you'd like one of our initial no-obligation packages, you can either contact us by email, which is Trust with an S, UnlimitedLLC@gmail.com, or you can call our phone service, which is 307-274-4122. Our next call is scheduled, of course, for next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we'll be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks for listening, everyone, and have a great week. Bye-bye.